Imagine a world where your property taxes depend on whether the ghost of a Victorian lady is floating in your hallway, or where kidnapping a Sasquatch carries a stiffer penalty than stealing a luxury car. Governments worldwide have spent a surprising amount of time regulating things that technically don't exist. From official Bigfoot protection zones to legal protocols for an alien invasion, we are counting down 50 times the law actually acknowledged the impossible. Explore the weirdest corners of the legal code. 1. For over 20 years, the US government had the legal right to kidnap you if you hung out with Martians. The Extraterrestrial Exposure Law, passed in 1969, gave NASA the power to indefinitely quarantine anyone who came into contact with alien life. It was meant to protect the Earth from space germs, but the broad wording meant that if a UFO landed in your backyard, you could be locked in a trailer for months without a trial. They finally repealed it in 1991, but for a while, the law was more afraid of alien bacteria than the actual aliens themselves. 2. Thinking about hunting Bigfoot in Skamania County, Washington? Better bring a lawyer instead of a rifle. In 1969, they passed a law making it a felony to kill a Sasquatch, punishable by 5 years in prison. The ordinance was actually meant to prevent people from accidentally shooting each other in the woods while searching for the beast. But the result is hilarious. A legally protected status for a creature that does not officially exist. It is the only place on Earth where you can serve hard time for murdering a myth, making Bigfoot the most protected fugitive in history. 3. In California, the law treats ghosts like a plumbing issue. Under Civil Code 1710.2, if a resident died in the home within the last 3 years, the seller is legally required to disclose it. If they keep quiet and you later discover your new dream home was a crime scene, you can sue for emotional distress and fraud. It effectively classifies a potential haunting as a material defect, putting a poltergeist in the same legal category as a cracked foundation or a termite infestation. It is the state's way of saying that while ghosts might not be real, the terror of living with one definitely has a price tag. 4. The Vatican has a legal and theological Plan B for first contact. Their lead astronomers have stated that, according to church policy, an alien could theoretically be baptized if they requested it. There is an ongoing legal discussion within the church about whether souls are exclusive to humans. This means the Vatican is essentially creating a preemptive legal framework for the ultimate first contact conversion. If an alien saucer landed tomorrow and asked for a priest, the church wouldn't just be ready. They'd have the paperwork already filled out. 5. In Iceland, construction crews do not just answer to engineers. They answer to elves. Known as Holdufolk, these hidden people have actual legal weight in city planning. The road administration has historically diverted multi-million-dollar highways to avoid disturbing elf rocks or enchanted landscapes. They even hire mediators to negotiate with the spirits. It is a rare place where a mythical creature's property rights can trump a human's commute. Do you think we should respect local folklore this much? Or is halting a highway for an invisible roommate a step too far? 6. In Hawaii, real estate developers have to deal with more than just bedrock. They have to deal with night marchers. These are the ghosts of ancient warriors who allegedly follow specific ancestral paths. Under local cultural impact laws, if a development project sits on one of these traditional spirit trails, the state can force developers to alter their plans to avoid blocking the ghosts. It is one of the few places in the United States where a ghostly commute can legally shut down a multi-million-dollar construction project, proving that in Hawaii, the past literally walks through the present. 7. New Hampshire is the only state where getting abducted by aliens makes you a certified historical figure. The state erected an official historical marker for Betty and Barney Hill to commemorate their 1961 encounter. Most markers are for battlefields or dead poets. But New Hampshire decided that a cosmic medical exam deserved a permanent roadside plaque. It is a government-sanctioned acknowledgement of one of the world's most famous UFO stories. It makes you wonder, if the government is putting up signs for alien encounters, do they know something we don't? 8. Port Orford, Oregon, decided that if aliens ever arrive, They should not have to worry about local bureaucracy. The town passed an ordinance declaring itself a safe haven for extraterrestrials. The law guarantees that any space traveler landing there will be welcomed and protected rather than detained or dissected. It is a bold diplomatic move for a tiny coastal town. If you were an alien scout looking for a place to land and saw a safe haven sign, would you trust the local city council's promise of safety, or would you assume it was just a clever trap? 9. Roswell, New Mexico, takes its UFO history so seriously that it is baked right into the local building codes. The city has specific zoning laws and design guidelines that encourage and sometimes require businesses to adopt an extraterrestrial aesthetic. This is why you will see a McDonald's shaped like a flying saucer and streetlights designed to look like alien heads. It is a rare example of a local government using the legal power of urban planning to turn an entire town into a science fiction movie set, making the impossible a permanent law. 10. If you are planning to hunt for Champ, the legendary monster of Lake Champlain, leave your harpoon at home. In the early 1980s, both the Vermont and New York legislatures passed official resolutions to protect the creature. The law makes it illegal to kill, take, or harass the beast, effectively granting a mythical animal the same legal status as an endangered species. It is a fascinating legal loophole where politicians decided that "I will believe it when I see it" was not a good enough reason to leave a giant lake serpent completely unprotected. 11. In 1934, the Scottish government took the Loch Ness Monster very seriously. The Secretary of State for Scotland actually issued orders to the local police to prevent any attack on the legendary beast. They were worried that hunters from around the world would descend on the loch with harpoons. Even today, the 1981 Wildlife and Countryside Act provides a legal framework that could technically protect Nessie under its definition of protected animals. Scotland basically told the world that while they cannot prove she exists, they will definitely arrest you if you try to hurt her. 12. Brazil has an official UFO directive that makes space for the unknown. In 2010, the Brazilian Air Force issued Decree 7170-GC3, which legally requires all military and civilian pilots to document and report any unidentified aerial phenomena. These reports are not just filed away, they are sent to the Aerospace Defense Command for official analysis. Brazil does not just wonder about UFOs, they have a legal filing system for them. If your government admitted they were keeping a detailed alien folder on every pilot's report, would you feel safer or significantly more paranoid? 13. For decades, the city of Christchurch, New Zealand, had an official wizard on the government payroll. The wizard was legally contracted to provide wizardry and cosmic services for an annual salary of $16,000. This wasn't a joke. He was a literal line item in the municipal budget. His job was to promote the city and, presumably, keep the local vibes magical. The contract was only terminated in 2021, ending one of the world's last state-sponsored sorcery positions. If your city offered you 16 grand to be the local wizard, would you take the job, or is that too much responsibility for a rainy Tuesday? 14. In 2006, the Malaysian state of Johor took a firm legal stand against Bigfoot hunters. After a series of sightings of a 10-foot hairy creature called the Mawas, officials declared that anyone caught trying to trap or harm the creature would face serious legal action. They even banned expeditions into the forest without a special government permit. It is one of the few places where protecting a legend is a literal policy of the forestry department, proving that sometimes the law prefers to maintain a mystery rather than allowing a scientific discovery to end it. 15. South Africa still enforces the Witchcraft Suppression Act of 1957. This law makes it illegal to accuse someone of being a witch or to practice magic that claims to harm others. While it sounds like something from a fantasy novel, it is a serious modern law used to prevent vigilante justice and witch hunts. Ironically, by banning the accusation of witchcraft, the government legally acknowledges that the belief in the supernatural is a powerful and dangerous force that requires state regulation. It is a law designed to stop people from playing judge over a hex. 16. Did you know you can actually buy alien abduction insurance? Over 30,000 policies have been sold in the US alone, and they are legally binding contracts. To collect the payout, often around $10 million, most policies require a signature from an authorized extraterrestrial. It is a brilliant piece of legal satire that people pay real money for. If you were whisked away by a saucer, would you remember to ask the pilot for an autograph to prove your claim, or would your insurance premium be the last thing on your mind as you left the atmosphere? 17. France is the only country with a permanent, taxpayer-funded office dedicated to UFOs. Known as GAPAN, this agency is legally mandated to investigate unidentified aerial phenomena. It is part of the French National Center for Space Studies, and by law, the national police must collect sightings from citizens and pass them to these researchers. This is not a basement conspiracy club. It is a formal bureaucracy for the beyond. France has decided that "we don't know" is not a good enough answer for the government, so they turned alien hunting into a desk job. 18. Salt Fork. State Park in Ohio has become a legal sanctuary for the legendary Bigfoot. While there isn't a statewide felony law, the park has established specific rules and protection statuses for its hidden residents. Officials have created guidelines for how to interact with the forest to ensure that no one harasses the creature. It is a rare instance of a government entity leaning into a legend to promote environmental protection. If Bigfoot is real and living in Ohio, do you think he is grateful for the government protection, or just annoyed by the extra paperwork? 19. The United Nations has a legal framework for first contact through its Office for Outer Space Affairs, or UNUSA. While they do not have a laser gun-wielding army, they are the designated international body that would handle the legalities of greeting an alien visitor. There are ongoing debates in international law about who has the legal standing to sign a treaty with a non-human civilization. It turns out that when the first saucer finally lands, the first person the aliens will meet is not a hero with a gun, but a UN diplomat with a very long stack of forms. 20. In 1954, the mayor of Châteauneuf-du-Pape, France, passed what might be the most pretentious law in history. He officially banned UFOs from flying over, landing in, or taking off from the village. The decree specifically stated that any flying saucers or flying cigars would be immediately impounded and taken to the local pound. The law was actually a brilliant marketing stunt to protect their world-famous vineyards from alien interference. And it worked so well that the ordinance is still on the books today. It is the only place on Earth where a Martian would have to pay an impound fee just for trying to sample the local wine. 21. St. Paul, Alberta, wasn't content with just watching the skies. They built a landing pad. In 1967, the town officially passed a resolution to construct the world's first UFO landing pad as a landmark for intergalactic peace. It wasn't just a tourist stunt. It was a formal municipal project with a proclamation that the space above the town was open to extraterrestrial travelers. Imagine the zoning meetings for that. If an alien actually landed there today, would you want the town mayor to be the one negotiating our surrender? Or should we leave that to someone with more than a 1960s concrete slab? 22. Until 2008, the UK used the Fraudulent Mediums Act to regulate the supernatural. This law replaced the ancient Witchcraft Act and made it a crime to claim you had psychic powers to contact the dead for money, unless you could prove it was purely for entertainment. It essentially put the burden of proof on the ghost hunter to show they were not lying about the afterlife. It was a fascinating legal attempt to draw a line between a harmless seance and a criminal scam. If we brought this law back today, do you think most celebrity psychics would end up behind bars or in a circus? 23. In 2012, as the Mayan apocalypse approached, the French government legally blocked all public access to the mountain of Bugarak. Why? Because a global cult believed the peak was a hidden hangar for alien spacecraft that would rescue survivors from the end of the world. The state didn't care about the aliens, but they were very concerned about the mass of pilgrims causing a safety crisis. It is a rare case where the law was used to prevent a cosmic evacuation from turning into a terrestrial traffic jam. If you thought the world was ending, would you trust a mountain-sized UFO? Or would you just stay home and finish your wine? 24. In 16th century France, werewolfery was a legitimate legal charge that could lead to a death sentence. Parliaments in regions like Franche-Comté passed formal decrees allowing for the hunting and execution of individuals believed to be lycanthropes. These weren't just angry mobs. These were formal court proceedings with judges, witnesses, and legal definitions of what constituted a wolf form. It is a terrifying example of how the legal system can be weaponized against folklore, turning a myth into a capital offense. If your neighbor started acting a bit too wolf-like during a full moon back then, the law wouldn't suggest therapy. It would suggest a trial. 25. In 1980, a man named Dennis Hope realized there was a massive legal loophole in the Outer Space Treaty. The treaty forbids nations from claiming the moon, but it says nothing about individuals. So, Hope sent a declaration to the United Nations claiming ownership of the moon and started the Lunar Embassy. He has since sold deeds to millions of acres of lunar land to celebrities and regular citizens alike. While most space lawyers laugh it off, Hope has been operating his business legally for decades. It is a world where you can spend $25 to own a crater, proving that even in the vacuum of space, property law is a very strange beast. 26. Back in the 1970s, the Oregon State Game Commission received a very serious inquiry. What is the hunting season for Bigfoot? Instead of laughing, they issued a formal legal response. Because Sasquatch is not a classified species under state law, it is not a legal game animal, meaning it is effectively illegal to kill one by default. It is a brilliant bit of legal Aikido. By refusing to acknowledge Bigfoot as a real animal, the government made him more legally protected than an elk or a bear. It is the only time being imaginary has served as a bulletproof legal defense. 27. Until very recently, Canada's criminal code included Section 365, which made it illegal to pretend to practice witchcraft or tell fortunes for money. The law was not actually trying to stop real magic, because how would you even prove that in a courtroom? It was aimed at preventing fraud. Essentially, the government was fine with you being a sorcerer, as long as you were not a fake one scamming people. It proves that the state is not afraid of your dark spells. They are just very committed to making sure your crystal ball is not a tax evasion tool in disguise. 28. In 1979, the British House of Lords held an actual 3-hour debate on UFOs. This wasn't a group of fans in a basement. It was a formal session of the highest legislative body in the UK. The debate was called by the Earl of Clancarty and included official testimonies and government responses regarding the UFO problem. It is a matter of permanent legal record that the people who run the country spent an entire afternoon arguing about whether little green men were a threat to national security. If our leaders are spending 3 hours on UFOs, what are they not telling us? 29. The 1967 Outer Space Treaty is essentially the galaxy's ultimate no-dibs rule. It explicitly forbids any nation from claiming sovereignty over celestial bodies like the Moon or Mars. This means that even if you are the first person to plant a flag on a distant planet, you are legally just a very high-tech squatter. It ensures that space remains a global commons, preventing a cosmic land grab before we even have the tech to get there. It is the legal equivalent of saying the entire universe belongs to everyone, which really just means it belongs to no one at all. 30. Germany has a complex legal relationship with spiritual rituals. Following historic cases where religious practices clashed with modern medicine, the government established strict guidelines for those claiming to be under supernatural influence. Today, the law mandates that medical and psychiatric evaluations must take priority over any spiritual intervention. If a religious leader or a family chooses a ritual over necessary healthcare, they can be held legally liable for neglect. It is a sobering example of a modern legal system intervening to ensure that even in the most mysterious circumstances, Physical well-being remains the ultimate priority of the state. 31. In New Orleans, the concept of a psychic defect is a real thing in property law. Unlike many states where you can stay silent about a haunting, the local legal culture suggests that if a house is notoriously haunted, that is a material fact. If you sell a property famous for its ghosts and do not mention it to the buyer, you are inviting a lawsuit for fraudulent concealment. It is one of the only cities in the world where a ghost is treated exactly like a leaking roof. It is a defect that must be disclosed before the final papers are signed. 32. If we finally pick up a signal from deep space, scientists aren't legally allowed to just shout back, "Hello!" The SETI post-detection protocol is a real international agreement that mandates a specific quiet period. According to these rules, any discovery must be verified globally and then reported to the UN Secretary-General before any response is even considered. It is a legal muzzle on humanity to ensure we don't accidentally start an interstellar war because someone sent a thumbs-up emoji too early. It is the one time the entire world is legally required to play the silent game. 33. During the Apollo 14 mission, hundreds of seeds orbited the moon. When they returned to Earth and grew into moon trees, the government had to figure out their legal status. They aren't just regular plants. Many are protected as federal property or historical artifacts. In several U.S. states, these trees have their own specific plaques and legal protections, making them the only plants on the planet with a lunar background check. It is the ultimate immigrant story. From the moon to a park in Mississippi, protected by the law just because they spent some time in zero-G. 34. In the UK and parts of the US, Wicca and witchcraft are legally protected religions under modern employment law. This means a boss cannot fire you for being a witch any more than they could for being a Methodist. If you need a day off for a pagan ritual or a full moon, your company may be legally required to accommodate you. It is a fascinating shift in the legal timeline. We went from the Salem trials to giving people a reasonable accommodation for their cauldron-related holidays. If your coworker asked for Friday off to perform a hex, would you respect their religious freedom? 35. In 1995, the U.S. Air Force carried out a legal land grab of nearly 4,000 acres around Groom Lake, also known as Area 51. The government didn't just seize it for security. They used a specific legal maneuver to bypass public hearings and environmental impact statements. The goal was to close off Freedom Ridge, the last spot where citizens could legally look down into the base with binoculars. By using the law to make a mountain disappear from public access, the government proved that if they can't hide what they are doing, they will just make it illegal for you to watch. 36. In 1976, for the U.S. bicentennial, the official coordination between the Navy and the State Department for the Tall Ships Parade actually included contingency plans for unusual sightings. While not a hard law, it was a formal administrative instruction for how to handle unidentified objects joining the massive naval display. It was a brief moment in time where the government's festive plans included the possibility of a flying saucer joining the parade, because apparently even aliens love a good boat show. It turns out that even the most patriotic events have a gray man protocol. 37. In Texas, the law is very specific about exotic animals and liability. If you happen to catch something that looks like the legendary chupacabra, you fall into a legal gray zone. Because it is not a classified species under state law, it doesn't fall under traditional hunting rules. However, under the Texas Agriculture Code, you could be held strictly liable if your mythical pet escapes and eats a neighbor's goat. It is a world where you might not be able to prove what your pet is, but the state will definitely make sure you pay for the livestock it destroys. 38. Louisiana has a complicated legal history with voodoo. While it is a protected religious practice today, New Orleans once had ordinances that specifically banned occult rituals in public parks. Today, these laws have been refined to focus on animal welfare and public safety, rather than the magic itself. You can legally practice the religion, But the state draws a very firm line at public sacrifice. It is a legal tightrope between protecting ancient cultural traditions and making sure the city's chickens remain safely inside their coops, proving that the law prefers vibes over blood. 39. As private space travel takes off, the FAA has developed informed consent laws for spaceflight participants. Essentially, if you buy a ticket to orbit and see something strange, you might be legally barred from talking about it. Many private space contracts include non-disclosure agreements that are reinforced by federal export control laws. This means that if you see a UFO from your window on a private flight, your legal right to tell the world might be buried under a mountain of corporate trade secret regulations. Is keeping a cosmic secret worth the price of a suborbital ticket? 40. Point Pleasant, West Virginia, didn't just build a statue for the Mothman, they passed an official government proclamation. The local government recognized the creature as a significant cultural figure of the town. While it is not a law that protects the Mothman from being hunted, it is a legal acknowledgement that the town's economy and identity are tied to a red-eyed winged monster. If a local government can legally embrace a creature associated with doom and bridge collapses, it is either a brilliant marketing move or a very strange way to run a city council. 41. In the state of Nevada, the legendary Route 375 is officially designated by the government as the extraterrestrial highway. While it sounds like a fun tourism stunt, the legal implications are surprisingly real. The Nevada Department of Transportation has specific regulations for the signage and maintenance of this road to accommodate increased saucer traffic. While you won't get a ticket for flying a UFO yet, the local speed limits are strictly enforced for humans. If a gray alien is caught speeding in a rental car, they are subject to the same fines as you. Does having an official alien highway make you feel like the government is in on the joke, or are they just hiding the truth in plain sight? 42. If you think you can escape the taxman by becoming a professional ghost hunter, think again. The IRS has very specific rules for hobby versus business deductions. If you can prove that your hunt for the supernatural is a legitimate business intended to make a profit, the government legally allows you to write off your thermal cameras, EMF meters, and digital recorders as ordinary and necessary business expenses. The government might not officially acknowledge that spirits exist, but they are more than happy to recognize the gear you use to find them as a tax deduction. It is a rare moment where the tax code is actually more flexible than the laws of physics. 43. In the 1970s, the city of Berkeley, California, took a very forward-thinking approach to space exploration by declaring itself a nuclear-free zone. While that sounds standard, the ordinance was worded so broadly that it technically applied to any extraterrestrial craft entering the city's airspace. If an alien ship powered by a warp drive or nuclear fusion landed in a Berkeley park, they could legally be fined $500 for violating city code. It is the ultimate NIMBY move, not in my backyard and definitely not in my galaxy. Imagine trying to serve a municipal citation to a being who just traveled 4 light-years, only to be told their engine is illegal. 44. The Brookings Report was a 1960 study commissioned by NASA and presented to the U.S. Congress that looked at the legal and social fallout of discovering alien life. It warned that discovering a more advanced civilization could lead to the collapse of human society and religion. Because of this report, some legal theorists argue that the government has a moral and legal obligation to withhold information about aliens to prevent global panic. It is a chilling thought. Is the truth being kept from us not because of a dark conspiracy, but because a 60-year-old legal recommendation says we simply can't handle the news? 45. In 1995, the Brazilian municipality of Barra do Garças decided to get ahead of the galactic real estate market. They passed a law legally setting aside 5 hectares of land for a discoporto, a dedicated airport for UFOs. The town council argued that if intergalactic travelers are looking for a place to land, they need a legally recognized zone that isn't just someone's backyard. It is a literal piece of government-zoned land reserved for beings who probably don't even know what a building permit is. It is the ultimate, if you build it, They will come. Legal gamble. 46. In the mid-19th century, Norwegian maritime law actually contained specific protocols for sea serpents. Because these creatures were reported so frequently by credible sailors, they were legally classified as navigational hazards, similar to an uncharted reef or a floating wreck. Captains were required to log sightings and provide detailed descriptions to the harbor authorities. It shows a time when the legal system didn't care if a creature was mythical or not. If it could sink a ship, it was a matter of official government record. Do you think modern sailors should still have to report monsters? Or has our modern technology sucked all the mystery out of the high seas? 47. Salem, Massachusetts isn't just a place for history. It's a place for strict municipal licensing of the occult. To legally tell someone's fortune or conduct a seance for money, you must apply for a fortune teller's license from the chief of police. The application requires a background check and a fee, effectively making the police the gatekeepers of the supernatural. The city government wants to ensure that if you are talking to the dead, you aren't also stealing from the living. It is a fascinating example of how the law can turn a mystical experience into a standard, bureaucratic procedure, complete with an expiration date and a permit number. 48. In a small town in Brazil called Barra do Garças, the local government didn't just build a UFO landing pad, they actually considered an intergalactic tourism tax. The idea was that if extraterrestrials are using city infrastructure and space, they should contribute to the local economy just like any other visitor. While the tax has never been officially collected, mostly due to a lack of alien cooperation, the fact that it was debated in a city council chamber is incredible. It turns out that even if you are an advanced being from the Pleiades, the local government still wants to know if you have anything to declare for customs. 49. In Oregon, there is a famous Oregon vortex, where the laws of physics allegedly don't apply, and the government has actually weighed in on its status. The site is a historical landmark, but more importantly, local zoning and land use laws have had to account for the mysterious forces that draw in thousands of tourists. The state government recognizes the area as a unique geological and phenomenal site, giving it a protected status. It is one of the few places where the government admits that something weird is happening, and then creates a legal framework to make sure people can safely pay $10 to see their friend look shorter than they actually are. We've hit 49 points of legal insanity, leaving just one. But first, the final verdict. The prize for peak stupidity goes to Berkeley, California's nuclear-free zone. The idea of fining an intergalactic traveler $500 because their advanced engine violates city code is the ultimate bureaucratic get-off-my-lawn. It's hilariously petty and perfectly human. Do you agree? Or was another law even dumber? Let us know in the comments. Now, for our final number. 50. There is a very specific legal reason why you will never see a ghost testify in a modern courtroom. In the eyes of the law, a ghost is legally dead. Under the rules of evidence in almost every U.S. jurisdiction, testimony must be given by a competent person who is currently alive and can be cross-examined. This means that even if a spirit has the names of their killer and the location of the body, their haunting is legally considered hearsay and is completely inadmissible. The law doesn't care if the ghost is telling the truth. It only cares that you can't put a phantom under oath. It is the ultimate legal cold shoulder to the afterlife. From official Bigfoot sanctuaries to legal protocols for poltergeists, these rules prove that humanity's first instinct when facing the unknown is to reach for a pen and paper. We don't just dream of the impossible, we try to tax it. If you could legally protect any mythical creature or cryptid in your hometown, which one would get your vote? Share your chosen legend in the comments. Hit the subscribe button to stay updated on the world's most fascinating secrets.